Good morning, welcome to the Construction Wales Innovation Centre webinar. Just to let you know, we're currently leaving attendees into the webinar, so we'll be commencing our delivery in probably about 3-4 minutes. So we're currently up to 8 attendees with more due, so look forward to commencing very soon. Just to let everybody know that we'll be commencing in a couple of minutes, so take your seats, get ready, and yeah, we'll be starting in about 2 minutes, and see the webinar deliver through, and should be all completed, and we hope to be completed before 12. So thank you for your time on this morning. I know it's a busy time in education at the moment. Much of this project's aimed towards education. So with education hurriedly getting students through the door, enrolments and various things taking place well, last week and this week. So thank you for your time and thank you for attending the webinar. Okay, thank you for those that have joined us over the last couple of minutes. We have increased the numbers on the attendees. I think it's probably timely that we start now. So the current webinar will be recorded. So for information, the current webinar is recorded and will be available after the event on the Quick website to be able to download and to be able to view offline. So in readiness and to commence the webinar, bore da, good morning and welcome to the final instalment of Construction Wales Innovation Centre's Offsite Ready webinar series. Offsite Ready is a collaborative project led by Construction Scotland Innovation Centre in partnership with Edinburgh and Napier University, Moby, Class of Your Own and Quick, and all made possible by funding through the Construction Industry Training Board. It's great to have so many joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, it's a very busy time for education currently, with a lot of enrolments and a lot of inductions happening currently within the sector. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us on this webinar. My name's Gareth Evans and I'm the Centre Manager for the Construction Wales Innovation Centre. And it's not all about me. Today is about as well my fellow presenter. So currently online with us is Mr. Andrew Duggan. Andrew is the Managing Director for the manufacture at Castleoak Offsite, and they have offices located in Cardiff and a manufacturing facility in Ebbw Vale. And Andrew and his award-winning team strongly believe in precision, quality, and I suppose this emanates from the quality and performance of the buildings and the product that they deliver. So on to the content of today's webinar. I'll be exploring the Offsite Ready resources, and we'll also hear a little bit more in detail from Andrew and from Castleoak around their experience working in an offsite construction model. First, I'd like to sort of delve into detail and explain to you what you'll expect in regards to the delivery and how you can interact with us. Because over the last 3 webinars that we've delivered, we've had a strong interaction from our participants online. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a control panel, and you'll automatically be muted. So unfortunately, you can't interact with us via voice, but you can interact with us via the chat function. So please feel free at any time, should any piece of content or should any discussion between Andrew and myself be of interest to you, and that you'd like to ask a question to us, feel free to use the chat at any time, and this will be picked up by our team. Julie and Sheila will be in the background filtering through the questions. If they are operational questions, Julie and Sheila will relay information to you at that time. But if they are questions for the panelists, we will then filter those and answer them during 2 prescribed slots at the webinar. If you have any sort of further questions in terms of usability, or if you need any further links, details, or anything of such, again, feel free to ask those in the chat, and Julie and Sheila will provide you the links to any of the content on the chat function. Now onto the agenda. First up, I have a quick poll, and you will see 3 of these appear during the webinar. These are polls that have been created to allow the delivery and to allow the knowledge to be transferred back to the funders, CITB. And the first question, which is currently open on your screens now, is: what do you think are the biggest benefits of management and integration for the offsite construction process? You will have three answers in front of you, one being thermal performance, one being augmented reality for maintenance, and one being BIM for the life cycle. These are prescribed questions and have been set by the lead organisation, and this will allow us to actually relay this information back. So thank you for your input, and thank you for that. Thank you for answering those for us. We can now move on. You've heard enough from me. I've sort of brought to the table what we're going to be discussing today, and the most important for us currently is to actually delve in and look into today in terms of detail around the content and the matter that we discuss. So before we hear from Andrew, I'm just going to show you a little video. This video will give you an overview of what we're going to discuss with Andrew today, and some of the content I'll be sharing from the Offsite Ready resources. So in readiness for that, I'm going to show my screen to you. And hopefully this will work. That there is one of the amazing animations that have been produced by the team at Construction Scotland Innovation Centre, and so it gives you a little taste of what we're going to be discussing today with Andrew and the team at Castleoak. We're going to be exploring the management and integration of an offsite or a modern method or an MMC build. So, in readiness for that, I'd like to welcome Andrew to give us an insight to Castleoak and their on-site and off-site offer. Andrew, thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be with you this morning, and thank you for the invitation to Gareth and the team for having the opportunity to pick up and share our experience and share some of our thoughts with you today. Just to, I think it'd be worth giving you a little bit of an introduction into who Castleoak are. So as Gareth mentioned, we're headquartered in Cardiff, Cardiff Gate Business Park. A business been around over 30 years, typically synonymous with the design and build sector, so main contracting environment, and specifically over the last 20 years or so, exclusively working within the later living sector. So its specialism has really evolved into care homes and assisted living sector around the retirement living, etc. That's been across the UK, and principally because of its marketplace being private fee-paying market at the higher end. Typically, Castleoak's customer base has been in the southeast of England. So, if you like, we've always exported our skills, knowledge, and experience across the border, and have been doing that successfully for, as I say, sort of 20 years or so. In 2008, I was part of the business then in a HR role, actually. We took the decision to open our own timber frame manufacturing facility in Ebervale, and that's what I'm now responsible for as the MD. We did that at that time because of a huge demand for timber frame across the UK. Housing market was very buoyant within the speculative market, so the likes of Persimmon, etc. And Castleoak was having great difficulty in having quality and consistency of its supply chain. So we took the view at that time to set up and establish our own timber frame factory as an integrated procurement method through for Castleoak's work. If you like, for the last 10 years or so, that has been very successfully been operating as a cost centre within the Castleoak family of businesses, and has delivered a great innovation and great product and great service to its customers within that later living field. About 2 years ago, as a board, we took a decision to look to supply the external market with our offsite manufacturing capability. As I say, principally centered around timber frame, and through the evolution of our product range over that period, in very recent times, we've changed our company name to be Castleoak Offsite Manufacturing, which is really in keeping with the direction of travel in terms of the market and where our customer base are, what our customers are looking to procure, and also, frankly, it's far more reflective about what we do as a business. So what we don't do is timber frame panels in the historical sense. Certainly that's where we started, and you'll see from some illustrations I'll show you in a moment about how our offer has really evolved over the course of time. So in current state, as I say, really kicked off in the last 2 years or so, our marketplace has evolved quite significantly. So Castleoak still remains a very big customer of ours, which is still focused on the later living sector. But our offsite customers, exclusively working outside, if you like, of Castleoak, has really been centered around social housing and exclusively social housing in Wales. So we're very much aligned as a manufacturing business now to the Future Generations Act, and aligning our output and our work to facilitate that, to making sure that the housing associations and the public procured work, we're completely aligned to and supporting that agenda. So we'll pick up, no doubt, some of that in the question later, both from Gareth and from the attendees today, about how we're maybe trying to do that. And it's interesting, Gareth just showed the illustration there about, you know, a BIM model, and it is interesting, again, your feedback as questions about where you see Offsite really adding values around BIM. Well, I'll try and bring BIM to life for you with a video which we've just commissioned and hasn't been shared yet, so you're the first ones to see this, about a very recent project which got completed for us just through the end of lockdown. So with a good wind, hopefully this will work. So this is a project of 18 houses for Pobble Housing Association in Newport. We were the offsite manufacturer supplying the main contractor. And this was commissioned to showcase what we do and to really showcase what happens, but if you do a level of offsite that we can do. So day one, factory fitted panels. So say if you like traditional timber frame panels, but in a factory environment, we install insulation, as you can see there, and also fit in the factory environment the windows. So you can see on the ground floor there, completed within 4 hours. Windows were fitted, and all of the external walls on the ground floor complete. We manufacture floor cassettes. So for those of you that know the difference, and I'll try to enlighten those who don't, there's two ways of doing floors in timber frame buildings or in cassetted buildings. One of them is to do a fully integrated floor, which is what that was, and to do that completely in the factory. And the other way to do that is to do it in stick form, so planks, timber, on site, and then you manufacture the floor on site. So that's just to summarize where we got to after day one. And if you like, ground floor, first floor complete with the temporary doors fitted as well. The significant advantage of doing offsite in this manner is that it's able to be adapted to any design. So this other offsite models with, for example, volumetric housing, where you'd have to procure the whole house, huge advantages of that. But one of the disadvantages to that is certainly its adaptability to bespoke design. And that may be down to specific customer requirements, or indeed it could be down to constraints of the site in terms of planning or often logistics. So again, summary here of day two. So pushed the windows out, fitted them into place. And then the start of day three is lifting the roof, which was completed on the first floor before we erect the upstairs. So again, completed panels in the factory. Tolerance in terms of quality is plus or minus 2 millimeters. So, quality controlled environment, ISO standard. And again, you can see the floors then being dropped into place. The integration around our offsite solution has also been procured with thinking about the following trades in mind. So on the floor cassettes, you can see a web joist, which is that metal weave. That has advantages then for mechanical and electrical services, which would follow on the internals. So where they're running their pipes and running their cabling, so they're not drilling through any structural timber walls, which happens more often than you would care to imagine. So at the end of day 4, you can really see the whole envelope being pulled together. And then on day 5, you have the on-site work done in felt and battening and the tiling of the roof. Again, this would be procured then by follow-on trades by the main contractor. But in 5 days, pair of semi-detached houses, weather tight and ready for internal fit out. Certainly, the other thing to, I guess, bear in mind with that illustration is what happened in a COVID environment. So we did all that through the pandemic, which is about to kick off again. So our factory remained open through that period. We managed to safely maintain production through that period. And the site itself closed for a period of about 6 weeks. And it's in feedback from the customers on site is actually by putting the offsite methodology and the offsite practice into place as they did, that actually saved them, saved their close down period completely. Now, for them, did that main contractor procure the follow-on trades in terms of decoration and plasterboard, etc., or did they put them on stop? Don't know. But in terms of us being able to keep and maintain quality of build and maintaining the overall program, huge advantages in doing the offsite, particularly in a pandemic environment. Another key point of that around health and safety, for example, is the working safely in a factory environment. Everybody is able to be social distance and work 2 meters apart. Again, so the systematic nature about how we put the manufacturing process through. So making panels, fitting windows, fitting insulation, fitting breather paper, for example. And then when that's erected on site, it's just pushed into place and then nailed into position. If we were to do that on site, you'd have a far more challenging environment where trades would have to be working more closely together, causing different issues then around social distancing. So it's interesting that on your BIM model, which you showed at the front end, Gareth, that's a practical illustration of exactly what you showed, I think, about how this thing really fitted together in the practical terms.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually, Andrew, listening to you there, talking about the whole, that you delivered that product, you delivered that project then, during the lockdown situation that we found ourselves in recently, and it's enlightening to see that that companies are sort of modifying their work practices to deliver this in a very different way. So the challenges that you were set, you were set a very sort of strict set of guidelines, and even with those in place, you still managed to deliver such a project and get it to a position where handover was probably not delayed by very much at all. So
certainly not delayed to the extent that they would close the site down for, and the main contractor and Paul was certainly in that case has been hugely supportive of that and understanding that's drives some real value for them and giving them some certainty in terms of the product that will be now fitted up.
Yeah, and seeing that, so manufacturing facilities, when it's timely, we're talking about manufacturing, so it's timely. We just had a question come in actually, in terms of your facility, how big is your factory? Your production facility then in Ebervale. Is it what's the scale? What type of scale are we talking about?
Sure. So it's easy to talk in terms of what it could deliver. So when you're talking about big, we're talking thousands of square feet. It doesn't necessarily bring it to life. The simplest way to illustrate that, I think, is through houses. So we've got the capacity to manufacture 1,000 houses a year in that quality controlled environment, and the extent of the product that we can manufacture in the factory again is fit for purpose depending on what the extent of offsite that somebody wants to procure. So insulation fitted, windows fitted, we've got the opportunity to fit external cladding systems, so render board or cladding systems. We're trialing some brick finish product at the moment, which again taking that offsite envelope into another perspective. But current state in terms of an externally cladded building with render board, insulation fitted, windows fitted, with a cassetted system and roof trusses, we've got capacity to do 1,000 houses a year. But that's on what we're currently au fait with, which is a 40-hour week, 5-day program days, So we've clearly got opportunities to be able to flex that should we need to, be it weekends or shift working or whatever. So we've got capacity over and above that. But if I get to a point of 1,000 houses a year, we'll worry about that problem later. But certainly exists in terms of to have flexible capacity over and above that.
Yeah, and listening to you there now talking about you're not just looking at the you're not just looking at that maybe the more structural elements, which is what we find traditionally being delivered in the sector. The timber frame. It's enlightening to hear you when you mentioned around the external finishes. The render boards. You're experimenting with I suppose there'd be a brick alternative then, yeah. Maybe bonded, or whether they're panelised. So it's interesting to see how companies are sort of developing their products to sit outside of what currently is the norm, within the industry. And like you said, quality is quality control. You can control that in your environment, and to ensure sort of quality control, I suppose one of the questions I've got. Do you do much training? So internally, today's very much about education. Do you do much training internally to ensure that the quality system and the process is sort of upheld? What do you do? What have you got?
So the training process starts for us as part of the evaluation on appointment. So as part of our recruitment process, we have a practical skill test, if you like, to be able to use a tape measure, to be able to identify different timbers, to identify size of joists and different raw materials to be able to put that together. We test their ability to read drawings, simple things, but you need to be able to read a dimension on a drawing to be able to make sure you're putting the right timbers together on a bench. The training that the guys need to be able to do what we do is we've needed to provide it all, because it's not typically skills that's taught in further education colleges, and it's I think is a real opportunity there for us to be able to partner and join up with further education providers to be able to support our skills need. Part of that is manual handling, even use of plant and machinery, use of specific tooling, saws, etc. We've got an initiative running with, or we've done some work with Apprentice through the CITB initiative, Shared Apprenticeship Scheme for Wales, where we've dovetailed the Apprentice scheme and really mapped that out about what we can do in a factory environment. So this is again bringing, if you like, a trade qualification into the factory, whereby so we've mapped out what they can learn as part of their shared apprenticeship for us. For example, segregation of waste. You come into the factory, all the walkways are clear and pristine. There's no rubbish in the walkways. So if they take that methodology and that thought process through, when they go onto site, it changes the dimension then about how they're using health and safety practices on site. So we've mapped that through with the Apprentice scheme, and really keen to sort of bring that to life. And I've got this kind of, it's not rose tinted because I've nearly done this now. I've nearly done it. But I've got this rose tinted view where we would take an apprentice through the shared apprenticeship scheme in the factory with us. We would train them in terms of offsite techniques, offsite methodologies, teach them health and safety practices, teach them plant and machineries and different criteria as mapped out. And then those trainees then would go on to site and start erecting the panels that they've made. They then work through the first fix carpentry and second fix carpentry, for example, through all stages of the construction on-site phase. And at a point in time when a plumber comes along or an electrician comes along and starts trying to drill holes through the panel that they've made, and as part of their QA process, their name's on that panel, they go, whoa, hang on a minute, I made that, don't you dare go doing that. So a real pride in the job from the manufacturing facility, and taking that pride in the job through to construction. And we've nearly unlocked that opportunity to bring that to life.
That's great to hear, actually, because I think one of the feedbacks that we at Quicks tend to get, in terms of experience, and especially from contractors now that are developing an offsite ready sort of an offsite enabled sort of workforce, then is experience is required, and there isn't currently enough focus on offsite manufacturing, and even in most basic form, timber frame manufacture, and other offsite, because we focus in Wales a lot, like other areas of UK, on timber, but there are other materials. Steel is one that is sort of coming up quickly, something that's been with us a long time. Still concrete, concrete panels and so on. So our students now need to be sort of aware of what's coming, what's available currently, and what's coming in the future. And I think one of the good news stories that come out recently is that the current qualification suite in Wales at FE sector is changing dramatically, and there is a brand new module on sort of emerging technologies and modern methods of construction. So learners from 2021 will now have an opportunity to learn via a dedicated module upon these technologies and these processes. So at a university level, great again. At a university level, we are embracing, we're changing. There are a lot of the universities in Wales are really looking at the current offer and making sure it's fit for purpose for contractors, because in many cases, your sort of staffing in terms of your management structure. So we discussion today over management, how important it is for learners in a HE environment to be exposed to offsite manufacturing, because ultimately the construction process hasn't changed in a long time, and this is one of the first aspects to make this huge change, a huge shift into sort of this a process which is delivered in such a different way, and it's embracing that change. And I think that's what our industry sort of we need to is embrace the change and move forward and integrate it within our offer. So no,
I completely agree with that, Gareth. One of the sort of major challenges for us is you take Modernise or die. This is a well-established government report, the farmer report, which is gathering dust somewhere, and it was very relevant when that was published, and it's more relevant today than then, with the skills gap and all that good stuff around sort of trades, etc. But the education sector, and I say this sort of in further education and higher education, hasn't necessarily, I don't feel, kept pace with that, whereby we still get quantity surveyors that are coming through who are only looking at traditional cost models, not looking at value, and there's a clear difference between the two, and everybody understands the difference between the two, but they still do the former, not the latter. So we see that time and time again. Whereas I'll give you a real example for this. A quantity surveyor in a main contracting environment would be looking at our offsite solution and looking at, okay, the render board's fitted, the windows are fitted, the insulation's fitted, you've got the fabric of the building. This is going to give you a U value of this. It's going to give you an air change and an air tightness of that. And then the first thing the QS will do will put it on a spreadsheet, and they'll break it all apart and try and do it cheaper. And they would do we can do the insulation cheaper, we can do the windows cheaper, we can do the timber cheaper, and they break it down into the individual component parts. And then that really misses the value opportunity of quality, speed, sustainability in terms of the product, and guaranteeing air changes and guaranteeing the U value that they're looking to subscribe. So there's a huge challenge, I think, from further and higher education providers to be able to engage with the likes of us, and we were very receptive to supporting that work to bring offsite to life and show where actually the farmer report from many years ago is part of the solution about how we can bring this together.
Yeah, it's really sort of really interesting, and I think that's one thing that Offsite Ready has done in the UK is ignite that. It's really ignite that interest in offsite construction in education. Project has delivered not only Welsh webinars. Offsite Ready's delivered 10 webinars in Scotland. We've had partners in England delivering to schools. So not only are we going further higher, but actually also deep into schools and changing the mindset of people, inspiring them to look at construction in a very different way. So what we'll do, Andrew, if you don't mind, we'll pick up. There are a number of questions that are coming in. So what I'll do is I'll sort of drop off now, our discussion. I'm going to cover off the resources that the educators could potentially use. I've got another presentation which is something like your video. Is the first time anybody would have seen this, and this again, this offer will be available to to FE and HE across the UK. So before I do that, we do have another poll. And the poll is, what's the main differences between traditional construction and offsite construction with regards to management and integration? So if those that are online, if those beneficiaries that are online can answer that question for us, it would be brilliant. As I said earlier, all this information gets relayed back to the Construction Industry Training Board. So 100% of those online today basically outlined that the increased control and certainty of sequencing and timescale is the most important. So yeah, that increased control is definitely something Andrew you picked up on, and the ability to sequence, deliver product on time in within that time frame. And as you outlined, even in a challenging situation like COVID presented to us, you still managed to get that to that place. So what I am going to do, I have now back control, so I'm going to just demonstrate to you now as educators what's available on my screen. So give me 2 seconds. Here we go. So the offsite, I'll flip into Offsite Ready. In addition to the webinars, the main thrust of this is an online content and online knowledge base. So for educators in Wales and across the UK, educators can access this basically to add value to their delivery. So this is the website. It's available at offsiteready.com. And here we find quite a few sort of resources available, fully downloadable and fully online. So there are a number of training materials available. So here we find a number of training materials. All of these are relevant to various aspects of the delivery. So as an educator, should you be wanting to, and I pick today, management and integration, I could look onto the management and integration page, give you an overview. Again, this is the animation that was displayed earlier. This animation could be again integrated into your delivery. Also, it's going to cover the core topics, the role-specific topics, give you an outline of the module. There are some resources, again, that are fully downloadable that could be then provided to your students to, again, add value to your delivery. There is a 7-minute video as well that could be delivered as part of this to learners to give them a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more depth and contextualize the content that you can be providing to them in an academic provision. So here we see examples and we see industry and academics talk on this 7-minute video around the benefits of offsite construction in terms of management and integration. So we have so in addition we have those. We also have again a very basic fundamentals page, and I say basic, it isn't actually. It goes into quite into specific depth, but again you can see there are a number of slides. You have a slide deck here, for instance, that's buffering at the time, but that slide deck is really in depth in terms of offsite construction. It covers off from early days in terms of where currently I feel we are within education through to what's being delivered at a high level, and again supporting information then throughout. It covers the history. We need to be covering off the history in Wales. A vast majority of our housing sector is classified as a heritage sector, pre-1919. So for us, that importance to outline here where we've come to and where we will be traveling to in the future. Now, I mentioned something that's available here and is new. So again, I cover off the YouTube page. Here we have a plethora of online content all ready to be integrated. Digital design, Andrew, we mentioned BIM earlier. Here we have an excellent video that's been put together by Napier University, outlining the importance of digital design and integration of the BIM process within this. Data capture, the laser scanning, and how offsite construction isn't something that's just about new construction. It also can be integrated into construction that could be seen as sort of remedial works, or could be seen as just within the extension sector. It's that addition to a building. It doesn't have to be just seen as a brand new building, big shiny new plot. It could be something that's added to an existing building. Now, fresh off the press, and an area that I want to cover here, again, that it'll take me a couple of minutes to just flip from one. Just checking, Andrew, because I'm the only one could give me some feedback. Can you see on a presentation on your screen now?
Yes.
Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to view this. Now, fresh off the press on this is another project which we have engaged with Construction Scotland Innovation Centre and again a number of other partners. This is a virtual reality training offer, and this virtual reality training offer, we are pleased to say, is now in sort of the final stage of being loaded into a portal that learners from across the UK can utilise as part of their learning journey. And this Convert project here, these are snapshots from a VR headset. This is on a laptop, but essentially we had a learner that was using virtual reality, and these are just sort of images of a phone. But I'll sort of here gives an opportunity for a learner to learn about residential, industrial buildings, and most importantly for our topic, off-site construction. And what it does is gives them an opportunity to talk about and explore, the process, and it again contextualizes the learning that they get. So we delivered the classroom-based stuff. This is an added benefit that basically outlines to the learners the what they are actually hearing about in that classroom. So here we have an architect's text. All of these assets learners can pick up. So, and that pencil, for instance, is a physical asset that can be manipulated, can be picked up, can be selected, can be used on that piece of paper, right? So it's really engaging. The learner then goes in, gets given a brief, and on the left you can see an extract of that brief. They are asked to undertake the process themselves. And in the next slide, here you see somebody going to be asked about the selection of the foundation that they're actually, of the building that they want to build. And on the next slide, you see on the right, a progress score. So for instance, the learner is prompted to make selections, and the learner will then be scored upon those selections, and we basically give them a score on how sustainable and how whether it's in terms of sustainability, in terms of value, in terms of costs. These are all scores that are taken into, and again you see duration there. For instance, time is a big factor here. So the learners are scored. So should they make a wrong decision, it isn't wrong in the whole process, but they will be prompted at the end to say, well, you could have chosen a slightly different path, and that would have sped something up. It would have saved you money. It would have been more sustainable. Now, virtual reality is an amazing thing, and it gives you the opportunity to explore aspects of construction that you wouldn't be able to do if you were just sitting on a seat in the classroom. So here is an extract of that offsite model, and you can see that there are sections through this this building, section through the foundation. So you see a hole that's been bored in the ground there, exposing what the foundation looks like. You see the section through the walls. showing the various the various processes that have been taking place. Here we have externally clad, that may be CLT. You can see insulation in there. We can also see probably an insulated finish panel on the interior, and all of these would have been selections that the learners would have made themselves. So they are responsible for their own path. Now, again, I sort of covered this off. I'll stop sharing my screen now, but these are products that are available to, or will become available to education over the coming month and a half. So should anybody be online and should anybody want to access these resources, feel free to drop it on the chat, and we will contact you and we will make sure that you are that you have access to these to add value to the delivery that you have. So that's the resources for me, and it's exciting. I wish I had these when I was learning. I wish I had these when I was teaching, because as a learner you want to keep people engaged, and virtual reality and augmented reality, mixed reality, it is the future. It's challenging, and the reason why we have created a computer version of this is COVID. We were put in a situation where we had an amazing virtual reality project, but we couldn't actually use the headset because of the transfer. So what we've done is actually transition this from a virtual reality sort of setting into a 2D computer-based setting that can be put onto a Moodle page and so on. So yeah, we've sort of, I suppose, travelled that path. We've got a couple of questions that have come in, Andrew. If you don't mind, I'm going to pass it over to some of them over your way. I'm just sort of running through these now, catching up a little bit. But so a question from a colleague from sort of in an industry setting. Then, are the panels open, i.e. uninsulated? What is the insulation used, and what U value do you manufacture walls, roofs and floors to? And that's
okay. Yeah, there's a couple of things wrapped up in there. So it's an open panel system, but rigid insulation fitted in the factory. The extent of U values in the walls, the floors, the windows, etc., is variable. So I used the phrase earlier. We firmly believe, in terms of our offsite solution, that it is not a case of one size fits all. So we've manufactured to passive house standard in a care home setting. So 60-bed care home in Brackley several years ago. So we've manufactured to passive house detail. So we can and also through we employ our own designers. So they would design a detail that's fit for purpose. Again, it comes back to a comment I made earlier around the value proposition, whereby you can over fabricate a building, and certainly a series of webinars I was involved in during lockdown, as everybody else was. Was talking about, actually, we're building buildings now becoming more and more insulated, but our climate is becoming more and more like northern Spain. So at the point in time when we're going to be, it's all about managing fuel poverty and heating buildings. At the point in time we might be creating buildings that you've got to cool, and you're still creating fuel poverty. So that's part of, I think, the rich debate. So we can go to 0.11 U values in the wall. We have a detail to be able to manage that, and we're comfortable with that. Triple glazed windows. So again, we within our integrated panel system, we put triple glazed units or double glazed units. The overall thermal sort of performance of the building depends on the external finish as well. So if it's going to be bricked or if it's going to be clad in some system or another. So we've got different details to do a range of things. But yeah, as you say, probably the simplest way to summarize all of that is to say we have done and can go to passive house standard, and therefore you could pretty much do anything in between with what we're advocating. Same goes for the floors. So again, there's a longer answer to this, which is a lot of the developments we do are flatted, and therefore you're dealing with acoustic issues and sort of we're dealing with residents and tenants living on different floors. So we've got a screed board system whereby you can have a concrete floor which is both dealing with your acoustics, so it deals with the sort of again, one of the sort of barriers, if you like, in thought process around timber frame, where you feel as though they're coming through the floor above. But you can have a concrete floor, it's bonded, so if someone leaves the tap on, it's not going to flood your whole building. We've thought that through in practical application, and then that clearly changes then the U values and the other performance measures of the building over and above acoustics.
Yeah, one of the other questions that come in here now, on rough estimate, how many factory hours does it take to fabricate the panels for the house, shown in example? So for instance, the properties factory hours on average, what do you think it would take you as a team to do that in your?
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to answer because of, again, the variation of what product may be procured. So if we fit in render board and an external cladding system in addition to what we talked about, it's going to take longer. And just an open panel timber frame is a lot shorter. So the example, as I say, probably the simplest way to describe this, I'd say we could do 1,000 houses a year. That would be at the optimum level of product. So that would be, an externally clad building in either clad or a render board, and then insulated and windows fitted, etc. But other examples are, we can pre-drill frame for M&E services. We can look to put back boxes in the factory environment, so that again, the follow-on M&E trades are ready to go. And then that really gets back to where you started, Gareth, really talking about BIM and how these things are all overlaid. And if you've got enough detailed design and enough people engaged in the design process to start with, you really are designing for manufacture, and you're manufacturing and designing out a lot of those sort of issues, and creating opportunity to get more efficiency in terms of time, program, quality, sustainability.
Yeah. We've got so much to learn. The sector's moving very quickly, but we've got so much to learn from colleagues, with that have already embraced this. When we look into the automotive sector and into various engineering sectors, what we have here, the engagement of the designers, maybe clients as well, very, very early, in the process, so that we can essentially outline and see what do these people want, what do they what's the final product, what are they expecting? Because in many cases, we heard on a previous webinar that I suppose uptake of offsite manufacturing in Wales is slow, and that was going to be a question that I was closing with. Essentially, you mentioned in your discussion, Andrew, around much of your work is outside of Wales, and you're trying to bring it into Wales somewhat. And I think it's the mindset that needs to change. We need to get out of this very traditional. Everybody sees offsite construction at the moment as something that maybe is displayed on that they've seen on grand designs. Every building is very, very, it's all bespoke, it's all high end, they all look the same. These are all things that I hear from people that are maybe outside the sector, but are considering looking at the product, like like Offsite Manufacture proposes to provide them. But what we know is very different. We can buildings can be individual, buildings can don't all have to look the same, and essentially it may be that companies like yourselves standardize certain products. So like the automotive sector, standardization of platforms, standardization of panels. So there are certain factors that in play here that a client could be told, right, okay, yes, you can have this, then that, and this, but these are the constraints that we work within, like standard fitment, standard panel sizes. So it just helps and supports you as a company, essentially, to to deliver that quality standard which you're striving to.
The key aspect there, guys, just to come across what you said, the key aspect in all of that is early engagement. So so for example, if you're looking to if a customer is looking to put a render system on the external facade of the building, we need to be involved as early as possible to make sure that is efficient then when it gets on site, so you don't get we're not creating delays. in terms of gaps and infills and things that are going to be on site. So you design your building based on render board sizes. Or the other thing is then you design your building around plasterboard sizes on the internals. So you get efficiencies and limited waste and plasterboard landfill, etc. Because you're designing the size of your room based on plasterboard sizes. And we have that skill, knowledge, and experience to be able to make sure that any design period that's taking place up front, pre-construction and offsite up front with the architect and the broader design team, irons these things out so we don't get time delays and we don't get lags in the program of trying to. The other aspect, I guess, which is really important to distinguish for me is what we're talking about here in terms of MMC and what offsite manufacture is. It's our firm belief that, so if you take all offsite as being a full volumetric system and all on-site is traditional brick and block, we believe there's a sweet spot in between which deals with the barriers and blockers to doing the full volumetric, which is they all look the same. We can't get funding for it. We can't get a mortgage. All that stuff, which is very real. Versus we haven't got the skills. We haven't got the trades. We can't do it on site in the way we ever used to. And what we're trying to sort of advocate and promote is a sweet spot in the middle of that sort of scale where we can get the advantages in terms of time, quality, sustainability, and program, whilst covering off some of the other issues, which is go back to, as I mentioned earlier, the Future Generation Act, which is having a well supply chain, valuing the integration of skills and bringing that to life within our locality, and really fostering an engagement across our integrated supply chain, be it window suppliers, consultants, engineers, and other suppliers, so that we've got that part of the circular economy really driving value.
Yeah, and I got one more question I have to cover over, and just before we sort of close off, because I'm very conscious we're coming up to 12 o'clock now, so this question is again from a colleague and online with us today, and sort of they're saying, so my experience of offsite is design and groundworks was a longer period, and offsite fabrication time gained was lost due to external cladding and the skin. With other factors taken into account, I found that there was not enough advantage obtained by time, cost and quality of product. I'm confident with experience this method can be improved upon. Andrew, do you think that there are sort of areas within the process that can be improved? Groundworks, for instance, is an area here that it's very easy to lose time on, because essentially there's only a limited amount that, well, if at all any, that can be done off-site. From your experience as a company, what areas do you think need to sort of develop most to support now this sort of drive for modern methods construction off-site manufacture?
It's early engagement. So I've got a couple of examples working through with housing associations at the moment where we're engaged with them pre-planning. So we're helping to show the advantages about the fabric of the building. So it's giving them the energy performance that the building is looking for, and they're designing that in at the earliest possible time. In two real examples at the moment, pre-planning. So when they put in a product into planning, they're doing that with the best knowledge about what they're trying to achieve in planning. So, for example, if the building works for them off-site around their sort of agenda, and it's going to have a render board on it, don't put a building into planning that looks like brick. Simple stuff. And you talk about groundwork. In those two examples of where we've been involved with their early engagement as part of their design team, by understanding the fabric of the building, we have saved time and money in the ground by recognizing and understanding the integration about our product and what the impact would be on the ground. So in one example, it's got to be piled, but the way that we designed our buildings is different, where it hasn't got any structural load in the fabric, on the internals of the building. It's only on the external structures. So it costs more. It costs slightly more, 5% more to manufacture that product off-site, but it saves 30% in the ground. And we're, so it's understanding what we do in off-site, but understanding the overall integration of what that means on-site thereafter. And we're, because of our knowledge, skills, knowledge, and experience about understanding that coexistence between an off-site provider and a design and build contractor, we're able to bring that together and showcase that in a different way. And it's giving, you know, in those two examples, giving the housing association a lot of background knowledge and information to be able to then foster good conversation with their groundwork contractor, to use the example you described.
Yeah, no, and yeah, and definitely, you know, it's all about really at the moment, you know, we're still, you know, this is being utilised, and you know, we're still at early days really in terms of that knowledge, and you know that strive to develop knowledge with individuals within the industry, the influencers essentially, you know, and if we can demonstrate that, you know, the product being delivered is, you know, is essentially sector leading, and you know, these areas then we, you know, will transition into, you know, into all sort of clients will then be aware of, oh, you know, these are benefits that offsite manufacture can provide us. You know, we can save this, we can, like you said, you know, add 5% to your costs off-site, but save 30%, you know, on-site. So, you know,
it's seeing that thing where everything is integrated and understanding that, you know, everything is reliant upon everything else. And you know, we absolutely see that as being the integral part. This isn't about us. This is about the broader picture and demonstrating customer value at the end.
Yeah, and you know, definitely. So thank you, Andrew. I really have to, it's been brilliant sort of engaging with you today, and been brilliant to sort of hear about Castleoak and what you deliver. You know, you said earlier, you know, in terms of engagement, you know, we're happy to engage with education, and you know, I think that's everybody. Over the last 4 webinars, we've had a lot of sort of individuals on, and everyone have said exactly the same thing. They've all said that we're happy to engage with education to basically showcase now, you know, what this offer is and how learners, you know, but like you said about client early engagement and designer early engagement, we feel early engagement with education will support that, because you know, those moving forward, these people in education now are the future of our industry. So Absolutely. if we can influence and inform them now, you know, when they get it to become, you know, decision makers themselves and influencers themselves, you know, they're going to be, you know, in a position where they, you know, they will think that, you know, offsite construction is nothing new, and you know, what that value adds to them, you know, is the ability to essentially have confidence in it. So, you know, one of the I ask really, you know, there isn't a poll, but you know, educators online, feel free to utilize the modules. You know, my question would be, you know, which modules you think you're going to utilize the most? If it was me, I think I'd be utilizing the fundamentals on a regular basis, because you know, fundamentals gives an excellent background into offsite construction, and you know, should you want, whether it be at FE level or at HE level, you know, the slide deck there can be modified and can be sort of integrated into any resources that you have, and again can be freely hosted on your own Moodle site should you so wish. Now, unfortunately, it's time to draw sort of this Offsite Ready webinar to a close. Sort of, yeah, as I covered off earlier, so we've had a great insight from Andrew in terms of the detail and the systems in place at Castleoak. So Andrew, again, thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to be with us today. Diolch yn fawr, thank you. And can I also thank the audience for their participation? We've had a large number of questions come in today. Brilliant, and I think that's what makes this you know, a huge difference, is that engagement with the outside, you know, with our sort of client base and with our participants. So we do have webinars. That's completed our webinar series, our four webinar series. We will have engagements with individual colleges across Wales now moving forward. So if you are at a college and you are keen to find out more, we at Quick are more than happy to engage with you on a one-to-one basis, or should you want us to deliver a CPD event to yourselves and cover off the resources in a bit more detail, happy to do that via this platform or another. So look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr, and in the meantime, check out the resources on the offsiteready.co.uk, and thank you. Stay safe. Diolch yn fawr. Pleasure. Thank you.